Okay, I think I'll get us started here. I have 1 o'clock. So this is Ed Crow. Appreciate you coming on and joining today. Today we're going to focus on Medicare special election periods. So I always say this at the beginning of the webinars. We do record all our webinars. So we'll record this one like the others. For future reference, if you want to attend a webinar, we have them usually every Wednesday and Thursday on various topics. If you want to attend a future one but you can't make it, just register and we will send you the recording. So that way you can listen to it at a time you want to listen to it. So again, just register if you can't make it. The other thing I wanted to mention is I'm very open to if there's certain topics that you have interest in, I'm welcome suggestions. I'm always looking for new material or maybe some things that you might find helpful that I just haven't thought of. So please feel free to do that. You can email me at edward@crowasassociates.com or at the end of the webinar for the question section if you want to send in any suggestions for future topics. We'll see if we can get those on the schedule for a Wednesday or Thursday webinar. So having said that, I think I'll get us started. As I mentioned a minute ago, if you have any questions, please send them in during the webinar. I will try to answer them at the end. Hopefully I can answer them. Usually we get some good questions, so we'll see if I get stumped by any of them. And with that, I think we'll get started. So today we're going to talk about Medicare special election periods. We're going to go over special election periods, but also just quickly talk about T65, AEP, and OEP. I did mention up there, I know that's not technically a SEP, but just a quick reminder, we'll talk about drug help and dual SEPs, COVID SEP, FEMA SEP, talk about the special election for people who move to a new location, those who are new to Part B, which almost has its own subset of things to follow, and then loss of employer coverage. I will focus on that new to Part B a little more than the others, because that is the one we get a lot of questions about, and it's a confusing one as well. So we'll hit on those. Some of these topics probably I won't be doing justice with the amount of detail because I try to keep these webinars about 15 minutes. Some of them could probably be their own, but we'll hit on them a little bit anyway. And again, I see new people joining. If you have questions, please just send them into the webinar and we will answer them at the end. So we're focusing on special elections today, but I just wanted to, as a reminder, mention T65 for those who might be new to Medicare sales. So one thing to keep in mind, and I actually get tripped up on this once in a while myself, is you only need Part A for a PDP plan. So if you got somebody who's turning 65 and they can't get Part B or aren't willing to buy Part B, remember they still can buy a drug plan. So turning 65 in A only, that is the election period to get a PDP. I've had a lot of times where in the past where I've gotten stumped on this is I get somebody who turned 65, they had Part A, and then let's say 2 years later they get Part B and they say, well, I'm going to enroll in a drug plan now. And I've had to go back and remind myself, they actually already missed their T65 election for Part A for a drug plan because they had Part A. You don't need A and B for a drug plan. So being eligible for Part A is your PDP election. You need A and B for a Medicare Advantage or a supplement. So that's the distinction there. And yeah, you do need A and B for a supplement. Now, technically, can you get a Medicare supplement with A only? You can. Because remember, Part A covers hospitalization, so the Medicare supplement will cover the remainder, depending on the supplement you pick. It will cover the remainder of the hospital cost share, but it won't do anything for Part B. If somebody's enrolled in A only, the supplement will cover for A in A cost share. It won't cover any B cost share if they don't have B in place. Because on a supplement, obviously, Medicare's got to approve and partially pay for a service for the supplement to cover. But T65, again, it's 3 months before, the month during, and the month after. So when somebody turns 65, their Medicare A and B starts the month they turn 65, except for when it doesn't. There's that rare scenario where if somebody's birthday is on the first of the month, their Medicare A and B starts the first of the previous month. So you got somebody who's a June 1 birthday, their Medicare A and B actually starts May 1st. But nonetheless, you can enroll somebody in a plan up to 3 months before the month they turn 65. So any application you put in that 3-month period will kick in the first of the month they turn 65 when their A and B is effective. You can enroll them in a plan the month they turn 65, and then up to 3 months after. T65s, remember, is one election only. We get that a lot. Somebody made an election, agent calls and says, well, they're not 65 yet. Can I move them to something else? You can't. If they already made their election, they only get one. There is some success with if somebody made an election for a plan and it's not effective yet, if they can get a hold of the carrier and cancel that app out before the plan goes effective, usually then they still have their election left. That does work. Let's do a quick tangent about Part B enrollment versus MAPD and PDP enrollment. And I do notice, just want to jump in here for a minute, I do notice there's some questions coming in, or it looks like we got one or two that came in. I will answer those at the end. I'm not smart enough to do the webinar and answer the questions at the same time, sorry. So quick tangent about Part B enrollment versus an MAPD and PDP enrollment. A lot of times people confuse those two. The rules are basically the same when you turn 65. However, there's situations where they aren't the same. So we'll talk about that in a little while, but those are two distinct and separate enrollment periods. Long story short, if you miss your initial election period or your special election period for Part B, if you miss it, your only choice then is to do the Part B general enrollment period, which runs from January 1st to March 31st for a July 1 effective. So if somebody misses their Part B enrollment and they didn't have a valid reason not to take Part B, they didn't have a waiver for Part B, and then suddenly they want it. Well, if they don't have an election, they're going to have to enroll during the general election period and won't get it till July 1st. T65 for Part B. I mentioned, what about the valid waiver for Part B? Well, I'll talk about this a little more later in the slides, but the general rule is you don't have to enroll in Part B when you turn 65 if you're actively working and getting coverage through work, or if you're getting coverage through an actively working spouse. Keep in mind, it's those two components. Somebody's got to be actively working, and you got to be getting coverage through that person. So either you're working, getting it through yourself, or you're getting it through your working spouse. But at whatever point that person stops working, even if you still have coverage, you know what, that is your election for Part B. You got 60 days to get Part B when you stop working. I'll touch on that a little more in a minute. AEP, just a quick reminder on that. Obviously, as we all know, it runs from October 15th to December 7th for January 1. AEP is different. It is last change wins, so last app wins on AEP, so somebody can put in 20 apps. The last one that goes in is the plan they will have for January 1st. You can talk, and this is a misconception with some people, you can talk and meet with people about the January 1st plan starting October 1st. You don't have to wait till the 15th. The 15th is the first time you can take an application, but you can have meetings, talk to people, go over plans as early as October 1st. If you've got a pretty big book of business, you certainly want to take advantage of those extra 14 days to get those conversations and meetings in. Remember, Medicare supplements are still subject to underwriting in underwritten states, but not in New York, Connecticut, Maine, and Massachusetts. I almost forgot what the abbreviation for Maine was. So if somebody's turning 65 or they're new to Part B, they're guaranteed issue for supplements anywhere. However, if you hit AEP and you're in a non-guaranteed issue state, so you're not in New York, Connecticut, Maine, or Mass, maybe somebody's been on an Advantage plan for 3 years, they're in Florida, and AEP comes around and they're like, oh boy, I'm sick now, I want to move to a supplement. They're subject to underwriting because Florida is an underwritten state, even though it's AEP. So just something to keep in mind. OEP. So we do get a lot of OEP questions still. OEP runs from January 1st through March 31st. There's only certain changes that can be made during that time, and those changes are if somebody has an Advantage plan, they can switch back to original Medicare, a drug plan and a supplement if they want. So you can go from Advantage to original Medicare, supplement and drug plan, or supplement only or drug plan only. You can change from one Advantage plan to another, but you can't change from one PDP to another PDP, and you cannot change from a supplement to an MAPD during the OEP. So remember, there's a couple things you can't do. That drug plan to drug plan change, I get asked a lot. You can't do it during OEP, and you can't go from supplement to MAPD. Last one, and maybe I'm getting a little too detailed here. I actually misspoke earlier just a few seconds ago. I said you could go from Advantage to just a supplement or to a supplement and drug plan. Actually, that wouldn't work, because if you're in the Advantage plan and you use the OEP election, if you write a supplement, the supplement doesn't kick you out of the Advantage. So if you use the OEP election, write somebody a sup app, that's all well and good, but it's the drug plan app that will automatically kick them out of the Advantage. So you actually, in that scenario, would have to have a drug plan for them to get out of the Advantage plan so they can go back to original Medicare and get a supplement. Because on the drug plan, you check OEP election, check it off, put it in, that'll go through and it'll kick them out of the Advantage. So I just wanted to clear up something I said there. I'm sure somebody was going to probably catch me on that anyway. So, okay, so that's OEP. All right, let's get to the actual, what the presentation was called, so special elections. So we did do a webinar yesterday on drug help and dual status. I'm going to touch on that briefly here. There is a special election for anyone who is currently getting drug help or anyone who is new to drug help. And it could be drug help, it could be full dual, it could be a state pharmaceutical assistance program. So full dual is a Quimby plus, Medicaid. Help is the lower levels of the Medicare Savings Program, which is a Quimby, not a full dual, but a Quimby, an SLMB, QI, and an ALMB. So QMB, those people get drug and copay help, just like they do on full Medicaid. But SLMB, QI, and ALMB, that is help, but they're only getting help on their Part B premium and help on their drug copays. But all those levels create a special election. So if you're a current person with one of those drug help levels, you have a quarterly special election. You can make one change per quarter for the first 3 quarters. So first, second, and third quarter, you get a change in each quarter because you currently have drug help. Current drug help people cannot make a change for the fourth quarter. So if you get somebody it's November and they have drug help and they want to change for December 1st, they can't. That change is you're going to have to use the AEP for them to change them for January 1st. Now, it's different for somebody who is new to drug help. So somebody who's new to drug help, they have an election the first of the next month, no matter when it is during the year. So if you get somebody who in November gets approved for ALMB, let's say, or maybe they even get on a SPAP, a state pharmaceutical assistance plan like EPIC in New York or PAD in New Jersey. Even if it's fourth quarter, they're new to drug help, they have an election, you can make a plan change or enroll them in something first of the next month. Medicaid, full Medicaid follows the same rules. And as I mentioned, I talked over my slide. Good job, Ed. State pharmaceutical assistance programs, there are a number of them. They are similar to Medicare Savings Program. They help with drugs, usually not as much as Medicare Savings Program. Sometimes some of these programs do not waive the Part B premium. Some do. But the trend with them is usually the income threshold is much higher than it is with the Medicare Savings Program. Like EPIC, for example, goes up to $100,000 for an individual. $75,000 for an individual, $100,000 for a couple in New York. PAD isn't quite as high as that in Jersey, but it goes pretty high. I know Oregon has a state pharmaceutical assistance program as well as California. There are a number of them. But if they get a state pharmaceutical assistance program, they are allowed to make a change once a year. It gives them one extra special election one time per year. The rule, if you pull the rule, it actually says getting state pharmaceutical assistance makes you eligible for one change only. However, I've found that if you put in one change per year, they go through. So I think the nature of the rule is it's only supposed to be good for one, forever. But it seems to, when we've tried it out, it seems to work once a year. COVID election, that was a popular one a while ago. We haven't heard as much about that recently. There was some confusion. Initially, FEMA, and we'll talk about them in a second, but on the FEMA website, they obviously declared an emergency due to COVID, and carriers started sending notices to all of us saying, there's going to be a COVID special election. However, they quickly retracted that. So right as it stands now, COVID elections don't work. So if you try to put in an election for COVID, currently that is not going through with just about all the companies. Now there's FEMA SEPs as well. So there's a special election for FEMA. You can check that always on the FEMA site. If there's an emergency declaration for a state for any given reason, hurricane, storm, something else, the FEMA site will list it. And you go to FEMA.gov, you can pull down each individual state and it'll tell you if there's currently a state of emergency or any emergency declaration. If there is, that usually creates a special election for the carriers. And if there is, like for example, there was a hurricane election for quite a while in Connecticut. I didn't really remember the storm, but they said there was one. So up until recently, we had an election here for a FEMA disaster. If you're in a state where there is a current FEMA disaster, what you would do on the application is you check special election and you write FEMA emergency or FEMA disaster for that election to make a plan change. New location SEP, so if somebody moves out of the service area of an existing plan, they move to a new area, that creates an election period. They have 60 days to make a change. So if I'm in Connecticut and I have a Medicare Advantage plan or an MA plan or PDP, and I move to Florida, that plan maybe it has a network in both Connecticut and Florida, but still the rule is I have 60 days to switch to a Florida-based plan. So even though my plan might work because it has a national network in Florida, I'm going to get auto disenrolled from that in 60 days if I don't make a change. So you got to make a change when you move, and that is an election first of the next month after you move, and for 60 days total. So you have an election to move. Now, one other quick thing to mention, if you have a supplement in a state and you move, most supplement companies will allow you to keep your current supplement. So if I'm in a state that has very good supplement rates, I move to a state with much worse supplement rates or a state that is age-based. Maybe I was in a state that wasn't age-based and I moved to one that is. Most carriers will allow you to keep that current supplement. So if my current one was cheaper, I can just keep it. The one notable exception to this is AARP. They usually will catch that when you move and make you take a new supplement, a new AARP supplement based on the rates in the state that you move to. They don't always catch it, but they usually do. Another quick thing to note there is moving from one state to another is a guaranteed issue period to change supplements within that company. It is not guaranteed issue to switch to another company. So keep that in mind. And then the last thing about that is if somebody moves and they have a supplement and you write them a new supplement when they move and you do it on a guaranteed issue basis, you're not going to get paid on that. Most companies don't pay commission on that, on a move, on a new location SEP for supplements. If the person goes through full underwriting on the app, you don't use the guaranteed issue, you answer all the health questions, then you would get paid on it if they're approved. So here's the confusing one. New to Part B or losing work coverage. So we'll talk about this for a minute. So if you have somebody who is 65, they are actively working, getting coverage through work, they don't have to take Part B. That is a valid waiver for Part B, assuming their company is 20 or more employees. So I'll use myself as an example. I turned 65. I'm working. I get coverage through my work, or I'm getting coverage through my spouse who's working. As long as I'm getting coverage through myself and I'm working, or if I'm getting coverage through my spouse and she is working, I can waive Part B if my group is 20 or more employees. You used to be able to waive Part B as well in the same scenario for groups under 20. However, carriers are looking at that now. Technically, even if you're working, getting coverage through work, and you're on a group under 20, you should enroll in Part B. Otherwise, carriers have been denying claims for those people because when you're in a group under 20, Medicare is primary, so that's 80% of the coverage. So, group under 20, working, coverage through work, you should enroll in Part B once you turn 65 regardless. If the group's 20 or more employees and you're working, getting coverage through work or through the spouse working, you can waive Part B. But let's go to the scenario for a minute where, use me as the example again. I'm working, I'm say 68 now, I waived Part B because I'm working, getting coverage through work, and my work says, hey, Ed, you are, we know you're retiring or we're letting you go, but you're such a hell of a guy that we're going to continue giving you work coverage. You're going to let you stay on the group plan, or we're going to give you COBRA. And I think to myself, well, I have coverage still, so I don't need Part B, and that's where I'm wrong. When I stop actively working, or if my spouse stops working and I'm getting coverage through her, when that work stops, that is my election period for B. I have 60 days I have to enroll in Part B. So don't be fooled by that. It happens to people all the time. Well, what if they don't? If they miss their special election for Part B, then again, as I discussed earlier, they have to enroll in B for the Part B general election period from January through March 31st, and it won't kick in until July 1. Other scenario is, same thing. Let's say I'm 66 years old. I don't have Part B because I'm working, getting coverage through work, and my employer coverage drops for whatever reason. That is a valid waiver then for Part B as well. But just make sure you work with your prospects and clients to make sure they don't miss their B election period. It causes huge problems. Not only will they have a delay in getting Part B because they got to wait till July, they're also going to have a penalty. So if they went too long without it, they'll have a penalty. Okay, so last thing I wanted to mention, I meant to mention it earlier because this comes up quite a bit. I do get the question a lot, well, doesn't everybody get A and B when they turn 65? They don't. If when you turn 65, if you're receiving Social Security payments from Social Security, then you will automatically get A and B. But if at the time you turn 65, you haven't elected Social Security payments, which a lot of people at this point haven't, a lot of people are waiting till they're 68, 70, then you have to manually enroll in Part B. In the past, people would call the Social Security office to do that. Now it's mostly done online. We have a link that prospects can use to enroll online. Getting in the weeds a little here, but if they're last minute getting their Part B, because maybe they weren't drawing Social Security, they didn't realize they had to manually enroll, give them the link, they enroll online. You need their Medicare number then if you want to enroll them in a plan, but let's say they haven't gotten their letter or their card yet. The place that will most quickly have their Medicare number will be their mysocialsecurity.gov account. If you think about it, there's two places people can go to get information. They can go to mymedicare.gov or mysocialsecurity.gov, but you can't register for a mymedicare.gov username and password online without your Medicare number. So kind of a chicken and egg thing, but they can get into their mysocialsecurity.gov site without one. And if they go in there and register, their Medicare ID will show up in there within about 5 days of being approved. So they'll be able to see it in there much quicker than they would get the letter or the card. So if you're in a pinch, that's always something to try, because putting their Social Security number on the app no longer works. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. Now their nondescript Medicare number has to be on there. That's it. I went over a little bit, about 23 minutes. Let's see if we have any questions. We do. Okay, so we got some questions. Part A only and Med Sup, is that per state? Is the plans we sell say they have to have Part A and B? Yeah, it's a really good question. I agree with you. The application does say that. However, we've had many occasions where the prospect tells the person, yep, I applied for Part B. I'm going to get Part B. My effective date is going to be this. They fill out a supplement application for them. Lo and behold, the person never gets Part B for whatever reason. That app still goes through just fine. So they have a supplement in place. They have supplement coverage for A, but they never got B. And the supplement's not going to cover B. So, no, you're right. People are supposed to have A and B to get a supplement, but they can get one with A only. But yeah, I mean, I guess, if the person says to you, I only have A, I want to buy a supplement, you should advise them they need to enroll in B. So very good question. Oh, I actually got a few coming in here, so let's see what we got next. Okay. So when you're at a nursing home and they tell the client that they don't need their drug plan or Med Sup as they are on Medicare and Medicaid, the drug plan tells them they can't cancel. Please explain why. Okay, sure. The nursing home's wrong. So certainly in a nursing home, you can be on Medicare Part, I know why they're saying that, but let me explain. Certainly in a nursing home, they can be on Medicare A and B and Medicaid. Technically, they don't, they're on Medicaid, they can't buy a supplement. They really don't need a Medicare Advantage plan. And the nursing home is probably saying, well, we're filling all these drugs through the nursing home pharmacy. But remember, for drug help or Medicaid to work, it only works secondary to some kind of drug plan. So they need to have a standalone drug plan, or they need to have an advantage plan with drugs. That's the only way Medicaid or drug help is going to help them, is if they've got something in place as a primary. Keep in mind, Medicaid and drug help is always the payer of last resort, and they're going to make that person have something in place to provide initial coverage so they can cover. That's why they're saying that. Let's see. I didn't think your typing was so bad, by the way. I was able to read it just fine. If you saw my handwriting, I think you wouldn't have apologized. So let's see. Ed, you said if someone is not drawing Social Security when they turn 65, they have to manually enroll in Part B. What about Part A in this scenario? Well, I was hoping you wouldn't ask that question because I get confused about that myself. But what I've seen, what seems to happen now at this point is they have to manually enroll in A and B. I'm kind of a creature of habit, and it used to be they would get A automatically. They had to manually enroll in B, but now when you go online, it seems that you have to enroll in A and B. If they're not drawing Social Security, they won't get either. They have to do it manually. Really good question, and I'm pretty sure on that answer. Hopefully I sounded like I was completely positive about it, though. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. Those are good ones, by the way. Well, it looks like that's it. I will talk for a few more seconds just to see if somebody's sending a question in here at the end. But other than that, what I would say is we will record this. We'll send you the recording. And I think we're done unless we have any more questions. So we'll record this, send you the recording. Appreciate you attending today. Hopefully this was fairly straightforward and clear. And look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Thanks, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.